Welcome to episode 171 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the greatest day in motorsports 4 recap edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host. After a long week of being off and being sick, after what has been a crazy weekend of racing across all three major motorsports series. And as always, my co-host, my sidekick, my bro, a former iRacing Indy 500 champion, a computer genius, a gentleman and a scholar, a guy who drove in the iRacing 600 last night. His name is Josef Newgarden. What's going on, man?
Hey, I'm doing great, Phil. Of course, great weekend of racing throughout all three series. Like you said, really just a great weekend overall. Of course, celebrating or honoring and remembering our people that were perished in war and everything with Memorial Day, but just a great weekend of racing overall, and a lot of rain too with NASCAR, so which just ended today. So yeah, ready to get into it.
Yeah, the rain affecting things to where we even waited to start our show. We usually don't start mainly because of me. When we should start, but today we waited because Ryan Blaney, after God knows how many hours of delays and cautions, got his first win in nearly 60 races by winning a major, winning the Coca-Cola 600, and giving Penske a double because Josef Newgarden, his corporate teammate, two-time IndyCar Series champion, has now got lifetime employment at Penske Racing since he made a last lap pass to win the Indianapolis 500 yesterday. 3 red flags in the last 20 laps, kind of look like the Daytona 500 more than the Indy 500 there. But Josef Newgarden passes Marcus Ericsson. Ericsson was in line to win a $420,000 bonus from Borg-Warner for being the first person to repeat as Indy 500 champion since Helio Castro-Neves, but a one-lap shootout, and we'll get into all that. Took that away. Newgarden getting Roger Penske his first Indy 500 win as the actual owner of Indianapolis Motor Speedway, even though he has owned Indianapolis Motor Speedway basically since the 70s. The Formula One race, Verstappen won. There wasn't a whole heck of a lot of drama until the rain came. Fernando Alonso had a chance, but they kind of gave that one up. Mercedes looked better than they have at Monaco in a while, but the gap between Red Bull and everybody else is basically like a crater or a black hole. There's really nobody that's going to beat them. There's a pretty good chance that Red Bull is going to win every race this year, break the record that McLaren had with the MP44 in 1988, winning 15 out of 16 races and winning all the poles. So that'll be something to look at as the season goes on. We'll also get into the Xfinity race, which will be live streaming because it'll be going on during our show, and talk about the trucks. Ben Rhodes ends up using his strat to get his first win of 2023. We'll go over F2 and F3 at Monaco, and then we'll talk about and preview for Spain this coming weekend, since they'll be racing at Barcelona. We'll also give previews for Rally Italy for the WRC, Formula E at Jakarta. They're going to have a double header this coming weekend and some driver changes upcoming. We'll have World Superbikes at Misano. Some changes, big changes coming along for next year in World Superbike and Indy next at Detroit, which will lead into IndyCar preview of the Detroit Grand Prix back in the city of Detroit, not on Belle Isle. for the first time since, I think, the early 90s, or like 1990. Spanish Grand Prix for Formula One. They put the track back to its original configuration. Won't make much of a difference outside of the Red Bull cars. Cup and trucks will be at Gateway this coming weekend, while Xfinity and there are people who do logistics for Xfinity teams are blowing their brains up because they're going to have to be in Portland on Saturday for a race on Saturday afternoon. So good luck to those people. Josh will go over his exploits on iRacing and elsewhere in a sim segment, and then we'll close the deal. I thought we were going to go talk NASCAR first, but we'll leave that for a little bit. We'll let it simmer before we go and get to that. First thing we'll do, though, is the Indianapolis 500. And it was a race that it took, over half the race before the first yellow came out, which isn't shocking. There were issues for certain drivers, but in the grand scheme, it was an interesting race. It was definitely a race that presented a lot of challenges for a lot of drivers. Then, you had Alex Palou, who was the fastest car, I think. It was the fastest car. He qualified on pole, set a track record in qualifying for 1 and 4 lap track record, and then but ended up leaving empty-handed because of an incident that was driven by Rinus VeeKay coming off of pit road. So there's that. So yeah, split 20,000. Yeah, he's won 2 oval races this year. But Josef Newgarden will go over the top 10 here in the Indianapolis 500. Average speed of 168.193 miles an hour. They had 27 caution laps, 5 total yellows. The last 3 all leading to red flags. So they had 2 yellows in the first 155 laps of the race. And then after that, it kind of got out of hand there in the last 20. Josef Newgarden gets his first career Indianapolis 500 victory over Marcus Ericsson by 0.0974 of a second, so less than a tenth of a second. And Santino Ferrucci for AJ Foyt Racing started 4th, finished 3rd. Alex Palou, as I mentioned, started on pole, finished 4th, had to come back from tailback. Solidified his points lead. He has a 20-point lead on Marcus Ericsson, his teammate. And you had Alexander Rossi rounding out the top 5, the best of the McLaren runners. Scott Dixon had issues early in the day, but recovered to finish 6th. Takuma Sato, 7th. Connor Daly, 8th. Colton Herta actually getting a finish at Indianapolis in this 500 for once. Rinus VeeKay, who I mentioned earlier, and Ryan Hunter-Reay, that was the top 10. Ryan Hunter-Reay, Captain America, finishing 11th. I thought he was going to stay out there, but he didn't. There were 17 cars on the lead lap. Jack Harvey was the first car 1 lap down. You had Lundgaard, Ed Carpenter, some of those cars, Benjamin Peterson, Graham Rahal, they're all involved in that multi-car incident that ended up affecting the end of the race there. But I guess the story, Josh, Newgarden was up there a lot of the day. He was one of many guys that I think were factors. Chevy had the better of Honda, for the exception of the Ganassi cars and really Alex Palou. I think the McLaren team has to look back and wonder what might have been. since Pato O'Ward had a great race car and so did Felix Rosenqvist. We'll get into the incidents that took both of those guys out in a little bit, but it was a Chevy benefit for most of the day. Honda made it look good in the end, but it was not pretty for the Honda teams, fuel mileage-wise or with competition-wise. And Josef Newgarden going and coming from 17th and having a great lap or whatever, great run. It was probably, they put the race together, they said, first time they really have been able to, and Newgarden finally gets the monkey off his back and ran into the stands, which Ryan Blaney just did a few minutes ago at Charlotte to celebrate with the fans and get his Indy 500 victory. So there was a lot of action, a lot of stuff that went on during this day, but it really only happened after, lap one. From the last 20 laps was where the real action started. It was pretty straightforward early in the day, and then it kind of got crazy there late. What did you think of the performance of Josef Newgarden? And I guess one other piece is, the restart, having a Green-White-Checkered in IndyCar, not something we see usually. The whatever they called it, the dragon thing, the bobbing and weaving crap, basically getting close to the attenuator, coming to the checkered flag, going underneath white lines. Are we really are we putting safety in play when you're making those kind of moves, especially prior to that when we had one of those incidents earlier, which almost became a really bad one there at Indy?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, for Josef Newgarden, we didn't really consider him a real contender in this race until late after the second half of the race, all the way up until the first caution effectively at halfway. It was basically below VK and the two McLaren cars with Pato O'Ward and Felix Rosenqvist. I think those were the main contenders. But then, slowly but surely, with Newgarden being able to work his way up through the field, passing, using the draft when he could, finally, getting up into the lead late, at around 150. So, he's able to get himself up into contention there. But, I think he did what he needed to do to win the race. But, of course, I think really we have to talk about like you said, the dragon effect that they do on the front straight and the back stretch, and then, crossing over past the dotted white line on the front stretch there on the final lap. It is a kind of a dangerous move. I think, the dragon, I think, like when in Formula One, you're not really allowed, you're basically allowed like one move, I think, in Formula One, and I wonder if they're gonna start implementing that, because I think in IndyCar you can't react to another driver's move, but and obviously the dragon's kind of more of a preventive thing, to snake down a straight and try to remove the ability for a guy to continue to draft off of you. But yeah, it's a tough thing to kind of look at, and you wonder if at least on the front straight, like maybe we should have a penalty for drivers who cross over that dotted line. Say that if you get more than two tires on the dotted white lines, then you have to commit to going into the pits or something, and maybe not make it a penalty per se, but effectively becomes a penalty by way of once you commit yourself there, then you have to go to the pit road and at least drive through the pits or whatever. So that could be potentially a way of looking at it, I guess. But it's a tactic that you have to in order to be able to win and to be able to break the draft, and otherwise, because if you stay stationary, then Ericsson gets a huge run and then takes over the lead by the start finish line, which we've seen that before with Marco Andretti and Sam Hornish in 2006 and everything. So it's something that I have to look at, and unfortunately, it's just part of how racing is at Indy sometimes. I was kind of shocked, that they resumed the race, going, restart straight out of the pits, without at least one, lap of caution. Of course, there's no Green-White-Checkers in IndyCar, so it's either end the race under yellow or restart the race effectively straight out of the pits. So it's a pretty interesting way to end the race. I mean, I think we've seen some pretty strange endings to Indy, the Indy 500 in the past, but yeah, definitely one of the, it was provided a great finish, but the procedures of it definitely slightly unprecedented there, and kind of feels like how Abu Dhabi ended in 2021 with in F1 with the battle between Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton there. So kind of in the same way, but that's just how it goes sometimes, and we'll see if IndyCar I guess places any rules in effect for that to maybe straighten up the procedures or whatever for for restarting a race with less than 5 laps to go and everything. But yeah, I think for the other teams, with McLaren especially, they had the strategy to remain up front and everything, and they had the ability to do that. But at the end of the race, starting with Felix Rosenqvist, of course, got tight in the short chute between 1 and 2, hit the wall, and then ended his race right there. That was the first one to go. And then, Award, I think, made a move out of desperation, with 5 laps to go there. Went to the outside of Ericsson to try to take the lead or overtake for a second, but then cut back down to the inside, and it just didn't have the grip down there to be able to do that. And you also have Ericsson pinching down on him, kind of taking his line away there, and you lose grip there and spin out. And so it's kind of like with Takuma Sato in 2012 or Alonso Jr. in 1989, kind of like that. So yeah, just a exciting race throughout, and then of course Newgarden making the moves to win the race. And I think I knew he had a chance to win once he was able to get not the last restart, but the restart before that, when Award crashed, when he basically took them 3 wide at the end of the front straight and was able to get to cut over into the lead going into turn 1. That was pretty ballsy move there, and I was like, well, Newgarden has a real shot to win now. So incredible driving from Newgarden, and yeah, like you said, he's a lifetime employee, I think, in Penske, although you've seen former Indy 500 winners from Penske move on, like Montoya, Pagenaud, and even Castro Neves. So it's not a 100% guarantee, but it's effectively probably a very long time that he'll continue to drive in the Penske stable for sure.
Yeah, I joke around about that, but I think Will Power felt the same way. And ever since he won the Indy 500, we really haven't heard anything about his status. And then, of course, he won the IndyCar Championship last year. Josef Newgarden is in play this year to win a 3rd IndyCar Championship. Winning the Indianapolis 500 isn't going to hurt his case by any means. I kind of look at him as like the cyborg Rick Mears, because he's just like a taller version of him, because he just talks, he's kind of robotic. I mean, he's funny, he has a personality, shows it with the Bus Bros, but in a lot of ways he reminds me of Rick Mears. And I think it also is, with the late great Robin Miller, basically badgered both Roger Penske and Chip Ganassi to go and hire him. Penske was the one that actually did, and I don't think he's ever regretted that decision with how good he's been for him, and will continue to be. Now that he's won this Indianapolis 500 and he basically is free, I don't know what's going to happen for Josef Newgarden, because if he felt tension because he never won the race and now he's won the race, I mean, now he's free rolling. That's kind of scary, to say the least. I mean, The one thing I will touch on, you mentioned it, the McLaren downfall, and I'll count Alex Palou in there because, to be honest, he's probably going to be driving for them next year. It wasn't his fault. He had a fast race car. I think he was just biding his time. Honestly, I think he was in play he was going to be a likely favorite to win the race. His car was fast enough to get from tailback all the way to fourth, which proves that he was one of the only cars that could really pass, even with the aero issues that exist with these cars. But his day was basically altered by that incident with Rinus VeeKay. Rinus VeeKay got a penalty, but he was able to recover somewhat. All the Carpenter cars were up there late, after basically only VeeKay being up there. Rosenquist making the mistake he made, that was because I forget who crossed over. I think it was Newgarden crossed over on him going into one, and he got the front end washed out on him, and he hit the fence. Newgarden. Yeah, so, and he couldn't keep control of the car. He had been up there all day. He'd been one of the fastest cars all month. And, kind of like Felix Rosenquist's entire IndyCar career, it was lost opportunity, really, because he had a car that could have won the race. But I think the one that's going to be the most angriest, and he sounded as much after in his post-wreck interview, was Pato O'Ward. Desperation, definitely. He made a move that was similar to Emerson Fittipaldi's move on Alonso Jr. in 1989. The difference was he wrecked him. Pato O'Ward wrecked himself instead of what Emo did, which is hit wheel to wheel and send Alonso Jr. into the fence. I wonder how that, if he wasn't in the grass, which basically that's where Ericsson had him. I don't know what he would have done. I mean, hell, Tony Kanaan in his final Indy 500 drove through the grass and brought a whole new meaning, an actual legitimate meaning to the pass in the grass, because the one Dale Earnhardt did wasn't a pass. He was sideways in the grass, saved the car. Tony Kanaan actually passed somebody in the grass. But Pato O'Ward was really angry, and I think there is a rivalry if IndyCar knew how to market it, between him and Marcus Ericsson. I mean, Marcus Ericsson's also not very happy about what happened on that restart. There's a lot of aggro there. Pato has a habit of putting himself in those situations, for as great of a driver as he may be. And he got screwed, to be fair. They called the one restart off, which at the end of the day, when you look at some of the other restarts that took place during the race, he should have been able to make the restart that he did. There still might have been a caution, but it wouldn't have, altered some of the stuff that had went on. By the time they did that second restart, he basically was SOL. And because the leader's dead to rights, he was in a bad position. And then in his desperation to come back into the lead or get back to the lead, and then he ended up going, thanks. So he's gonna rue this day, because that car was so good yesterday. Pit stops were really solid. They had great strategy. They put themselves up front, and I really started to have that feeling, like, oh my God, this might actually happen, kind of deal. Kind of similar feeling I had in 2014 when Captain America ended up going and pulling it off. I kind of started having those, the butterflies, and I was thinking, oh man, Pato could actually do this. Well, somebody else that's very popular, has been around this series for a while, the Captain America for Penske Racing, is now an Indy 500 champion. It's kind of, in certain ways, you can question how that final restart happened. I don't think doing Green-White-Checkers in IndyCar is a great idea. I think the last 15 laps of that race became a NASCAR race, which is not a good look when you're talking about your biggest entity. I think they should have just called a race right then and there, not because, no offense to Josef Newgarden, but at that point they should have called it. I didn't want to see Ericsson win, but you're bringing into play now in social media time that manipulation and all this stuff, and Roger Penske's up there, and it's his track, and it's a series, and why do that? Really, they effed it up when they called off the restart on Pato Award, and I think they started overreaching. The officials stayed out of the race for 175 laps. You should have let it go the last 25. I get giving the red flag because of the situation with Felix Rosenqvist and Kyle Kirkwood, because Kyle Kirkwood flipped over, a wheel went into the thankfully didn't go into the grandstands, hit some lady Chevy Cruze in the parking lot. But, and then people are like, oh, how does a wheel shear off like that? And it's like, it's a freak incident. The circumstances by which that whole incident happened is a freak incident. The thankful thing for everybody at IndyCar and for the people that were in that area is that it didn't go to the grandstands, or else it could have been really bad. It looked a lot like that 89 crash for Alonso Jr. when he hit the fence and one of the wheels just took off. Yeah, it kind of looked like Charlotte and Atlanta back in the day in the IRL days. But in the end, you can think what you want to about the race itself and how they ended it, but Josef Newgarden has a Borg-Warner trophy. He has a mini wreath for his son. I forget, Kappa or Coda or something. I think his name is Coda, not like COTA, but KOTA. Kappa is one of the sons for John Rahm, the golfer, number one golfer in the world. But one other thing we should talk about. McLaren definitely is going to be left wanting and wondering what happened to them. For McLaren, Tony Kanaan ends up finishing his last Indy 500, quiet 16th. Really never was a factor, to be fair. He was the one McLaren car that kind of never got to the front. But I think at the end of the day for him, his day was made earlier and through the week with all the kind of tributes and stuff, and his reception during pre-race introductions. I think he just wanted to get through the race cleanly, and he did that. And of course, he made a highlight, and he said, "Well, what are they going to do? Fire me?" So he got to leave with a line or two, and I think NBC would be smart to call him in and utilize him as an analyst here as the season goes on. Root Beer Float Head gave AJ Foyt the best finish I think they've had since Takuma Sato won for them back in Long Beach in 2013. Best Indy 500 finish they had since 2001. They were a fast race car. He was a fast race car. There's a lot of, 50-50 kind of feeling on socials about him, largely because of what he is and who he has been in the past. I met the guy. I remember meeting the guy at the auto show.
Yeah,
and
I've seen that picture.
Yeah, and I thought he was a dick, but, I still was going to be like, hey, he's an IndyCar driver. And he kind of was douchey, but, it makes sense when you're 4'5" and you have that stupid haircut. It kind of makes sense. But honestly, he's really good at Indianapolis, and he proved it again yesterday. Michael Cannon's addition to that organization put that car in the mix. And in the past, they might have been up there for a couple of stints, but a pit stop issue or something. To be fair, they did have a pit stop issue.
That pit stop at the end.
Where what do you call Hinch is literally yelling and saying that that's a penalty, which it was. But one of his ball lickers, Townsend Bell, was saying it wasn't a penalty. I'm like, dude, come on now. I mean, really, him and Paul Tracy and Dale Earnhardt Jr. and all this knob gobbling for this guy. The guy's a dick. I mean, granted, he ran well, and his car was really good. But let's be clear here, that was a penalty. Yeah, I mean, that's another thing. Like, they decided not to call a penalty on that, and then they're manipulating the race later in it. Like, come on now. It's the biggest race of the year. It's the most captive audience you're going to have. People knew Charlotte wasn't going to happen. You have to be better than that with the Indy cars. But, I mean, I will say he did a good job. I'm not a fan of the guy. I don't really care for him. It's AJ Foyt's team. They're not a great team, but they're making moves to try to be a good team. And yesterday, for the first time in a long time, the 14 car was up front, and Ferrucci actually looked the part. So I got to give them credit to finish in the top 5. Finish third in this race is for AJ Foyt, beating the likes of Ganassi and McLaren and other Ganassi cars, the majority of Ganassi cars, all the McLaren cars, 2 Penske cars, all the Andretti cars. It's a big day for them. I don't know what they're going to do the rest of the season. There isn't going to be a big oval the rest of the year. So any type of gains or things that they've done, I don't think is really going to matter. Maybe they can go and make some moves at Iowa and Gateway here later in the summer, but to be determined, I would say, right, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's to be determined on what kind of gains, like for the Foyt team, maybe at Iowa, the doubleheader there, if they can transfer their super speedway gains into somehow, gains with the short oval there. I mean, it is an oval, so obviously you can be good at oval racing of all kinds, so it's possible that Ferrucci can be good there, but I think remains to be seen. And I mean, I think that penalty there, I mean, it was a monetary fine somehow instead of the on-track penalty, but it's a very, I mean, that's a technical, because it did technically leave the box, but I mean, the guy caught it, so it wasn't like it rolled, like completely left the territory, but yes, it did technically leave the box, so it's a penalty, I think, but yeah, it was kind of almost a judgmental call, but it's a tough decision there, and that probably should have taken him out of the running there, and that last pit stop. I think if they didn't have a bad pit stop there, they probably would have been positioned better for the end of the race. But on the other hand, I did feel like off of a restart, Ferrucci didn't have enough pace to keep up with some of the other cars, like with Newgarden and with the 2 McLarens. I don't think he was quite as fast off a restart there. I think his strength was more of a little bit more deep into a run where they had they were able to establish pace, and he was able to go out and make some moves like he was able to do to pick up the lead for a couple of laps there. But that was definitely good run for that team, best run that they've had in a while. So yeah, just a really exciting race, and like you said, the tire flying out there, that's a pretty interesting thing that happened there. Obviously thankful that nobody got hurt or anything like that, but I guess for the woman that owns that car, kind of a funny story there, and wonder how the insurance claims are going to go for that one. So definitely a exciting 107th Indy 500, and can't wait for next year when Kyle Larson comes over to attempt the double, and we'll see how that one goes down, if he's able to be really competitive like some of his counterparts in NASCAR have been able to do over the past years that was attempted.
Yeah, I mean, he has to follow. The last time there was a Cup guy, it was Kurt Busch. He finished 6th and won Rookie of the Year in that race, the one that Ryan Hunter-Reay took by beating Helio Castroneves. And prior to that, Tony Stewart's the only driver to ever run all 900 miles, yes, in one day. Finished sixth at the Indy 500 and third in the Coca-Cola 600. So another thing that he has to aim at. He finished fourth in the 600 after finishing ninth, albeit it was 3 laps down in 1999. So those are basically the two of the best performances, or 3 of the best performances, and those are the 3 most recent instances, I believe, of Robbie Gordon, I think, made a couple of tries there in between or after that, in between that. I know he ran for Andretti. I think he ran for Andretti in Dario's car the one year because he was hurt. But either way, we'll see what Young Money has to bring to the table. If McLaren brings the same kind of speed and equipment they had this past couple of weeks, he's going to have a good shot. But, hopefully they'll make some adjustments aero-wise to make it so that, you can actually pass and you don't get held up by going and being in the past second place. So that's something we got to go and look at, and hopefully they'll correct it. I mean, if Josef Newgarden's saying it, then, and he's the guy who won the dang race, then you probably have to go and look at that sort of thing. Okay, so did the Indianapolis 500, going and get the points. I know we went over them briefly leading into the Detroit Grand Prix. The championship standings, Alex Palou, as I said, 20-point lead over Marcus Ericsson. Of course, both of them get top 5 finishes. Pato O'Ward third, 3 points ahead of Josef Newgarden. Scott Dixon, recovery drive, ends up, he's still 5th in points, 20 points behind Josef Newgarden, and 38 and so 57 behind Alex Palou. Scott McLaughlin, a nondescript day, he wrecked somebody. I forget who he ran over yesterday, Scott McLaughlin. I know he ran into somebody. He ended up, he's in 6th right now in points.
Yeah, he ran over Simon Pagenaud in the crash, or in the aftermath of Pato O'Ward's crash.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I was trying to remember who, but I knew he ran over somebody. Thanks for that. Rossi is in 7th after getting his 5th place finish. Grosjean wrecked again at Indianapolis. He was the second caution of the day. Will Power and Colton Herta round out the top 10. Kirkwood, as I mentioned, he's in 12th. He wrecked. Rosenquist, Root Beer Floathead. They're just going through the list. So that's the top 10 in points and some of the guys outside of it. And we'll preview the Detroit Grand Prix here in a little bit. This recap won't take as long by any stretch of the imagination. The Monaco Grand Prix was pretty straightforward. When it comes to Fish Lips dominating. He got the start. He did what he had to do. And in the grand scheme of things, he really wasn't pushed under any circumstance during the day. There was only one moment or one part of the race where I think he was in any type of peril, during the rain. Once the rain started, I think that was the part where it kind of got sketchy for them, but really, there really wasn't a whole lot that went on there. He won the pole on Saturday with a great last sector and beat Fernando Alonso to that. and was able to utilize that to basically control the race. Verstappen gets the win over Alonso by 27.921 seconds. Esteban Ocon with a great qualifying performance to qualify third, finished third, 36.99 seconds out. Lewis Hamilton, George Russell round out the top five. Charles Leclerc, Pierre Gasly, and Carlos Sainz, all the cars that are on the lead lap. Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri finished in the points, but they were a lap down. Two cars are out. Stroll continuing to be terrible. Reminders of some of the years where Lewis Hamilton was driving by himself because Valtteri Bottas disappeared, kind of bringing that back into play. And then Kevin Magnussen, who had all kinds of issues during the day yesterday and then ended up having to park. Logan Sargent. I forget who he got into and had to get a wing change. Sergio Perez crashed in practice or qualifying. Yeah, crashed in Q1 and basically ended his whole entire weekend in the process, and it never really changed after that, so ended up finishing 16th. But I mean, the top three cars, they all started. I mean, you just look at the starting grid, the top three cars finished in the top three. Lewis Hamilton went from 5th to 4th, and Leclerc started 6th, finished 6th. So not a whole lot of movement. Starting grid, Pierre Gasly started 7th and finished 7th. So not a whole lot of movement. It is Monaco. The qualifying was entertaining. There was a little bit of hope there to possibly go and make something happen, and Verstappen was hitting the wall, making mistakes, but in the end, it didn't really make a difference. He was able to win yet another race there, Josh.
Yeah, of course, with Verstappen, I mean, it wasn't really much of a challenge, except for the rain, which, definitely made it more interesting there. I think for Verstappen, it was basically just a case of being able to manage the race, which he was able to do. Of course, Alonso only 10 seconds back when the rain started happening, so there is still a little bit of an opportunity for Alonso to possibly steal one, but then of course they went on medium slicks rather than switching over to the intermediate wet tires. Of course, that didn't work out, and they had made a second pit stop. So you wonder if they had switched over to the wet tires before Verstappen, if he could have made up enough time to possibly close on Verstappen to make it interesting there. Of course, a lot of rain throughout the racetrack, so at Monaco. So started out just one section and then just slowly covered the whole circuit. So you wonder if with all the rain that took place, if Alonso and his team did make that mistake, could they have possibly snuck by Verstappen with that strategy? But of course they didn't, so it only leaves them wondering there. Of course, Verstappen, like you said, got into the wall a couple of times, but not enough to damage the car or slow him down. So, he's definitely able to continue on, pick up the win. So very straightforward race for the most part, except for the rain. But there was, I guess, a little bit of parts that were kind of interesting, especially with Perez trying to make something out of nothing, but ultimately being on hard tires for most of the race, and then basically being the test dummy for Verstappen since he was already so far behind. So not too much happened here in Monaco this weekend, but I think for Verstappen, he continues to hold on to the points lead, and Alonso continues to collect the chump change in terms of points, being able to continue to hold on to his spot. But I think for Mercedes, they definitely showed some more progress here. So with both for Hamilton and George Russell. So they both of course getting a good result this weekend. And Lewis almost getting onto the podium, but not quite. So yeah, not a whole lot happened, but I mean it's a decent start to the day, I guess. With what we were expecting to see all three races yesterday, so on Sunday. So yeah, definitely very procedural of and normal Monaco Grand Prix.
Yeah, and it's probably going to be similar coming to Barcelona this week, even though they've changed the track back to the original configuration, thankfully. Because the advantages that the Red Bull team have will definitely be put on will definitely be, I guess, accentuated by the track itself. So we'll get into that a little later on as well. Did you pick first for Formula One last week? I think you did, right?
Yeah, I think I did. I mean, we can look at that
All right,
here.
so I'll pick Max Verstappen this week. So we're just gonna swap Max Verstappen for the rest of the year. I think that's what we're gonna do because I really don't want to spend that much time talking about that dipshit. I don't really care about him. I would like to see him hit the wall the way that Kyle Larson hit the wall with Keebler Gibbs earlier this evening. And speaking of that, we'll go and give you the points standings and drivers and constructors leading into this weekend's Spanish Grand Prix. The Xfinity race they have the cars out there. Looks like they're doing a little bit of cleaning or running the high line or something. I don't know what they're trying to do. It's raining again. Oh, lovely. What a nightmare. If it's raining again, you have got to be kidding me. They cannot buy a break. This race is not going to finish ever. Verstappen has a 39-point lead on Sergio Perez in the drivers. And 51 on 51 on Fernando Alonso. I'm not even going to try to bother with Lewis Hamilton, who's in fourth. 19-point lead on George Russell. And Russell has a 2-point lead on Sainz and a 8-point lead on Leclerc. Oh, they're going to come down pit road for pit stops. Interesting. Okay. Stroll is in 8th. Ocon with his podium gets all the way up to 9th. Pierre Gasly is 10th. The constructors standings, Red Bull is up by 8,000 points. It's a 1-point gap between Aston Martin and Mercedes. Of course, that's mostly Fernando Alonso going against 2 drivers, even though George Russell spends more time whining and begging to be let past by Lewis Hamilton. Ferrari is 29 points behind Mercedes and 30 behind Aston Martin. So that's actually a good battle. Those 3 teams are going to have a battle for sure. Alpine getting the podium finish and also 2 cars in the top 7 have now leapfrog McLaren. They're up by 18 points in the best of the rest. And probably that's going to be the battle for 5th now. The rest of the teams are going to have a hard time scoring points the rest of this season. The Coca-Cola 600 just ended. We're doing this show, of course, on Monday evening, and Coca-Cola 600 ended basically an hour ago or thereabouts. And Ryan Blaney gets his first 600 win, his second win at Charlotte, which of course he won the first Roval race, 8th career Cup Series win, first win in 50-something races. So we'll get in all that here shortly. Blaney now moves up to 4th in the points, considering if you're taking into account the wins and all that. So we'll get into the results here. There's basically everybody and their mother were on the lead lap by the end of the race. 25 cars were on the lead lap at the end of this race because there was, 16 cautions, so that'll help. Ryan Blaney, William Byron, Martin Truex, Bubba Wallace, Tyler Reddick, Kyle Busch, Ricky Stenhouse, Ricky Stenhouse, Richard, Christopher Buescher, Austin Dillon, who was nowhere the whole entire day, somehow or another got a top 10, and Zane Smith from 29th finished 10th in the 38 car. Harvick fell from 2nd to 30th in the first segment in 30 laps, and then came all the way back to finish 11th. So credit to him. That'll be a story we'll talk about here shortly. Other people, the stage winners, Byron won stage 1, Buescher won stage 2, Blaney won stage 3, and then won the race, led the most laps. Him and Byron were basically the class of the field. Christopher Bell did have a very fast race car before he started hitting the fence and doing other stuff. Same for Brad Keselowski. I think the initial story before we get into some of the other stuff that went on, Josh, is Ryan Blaney. He hadn't won a race in so long. To go out there and get the victory. It was I don't know how many races it was, 50-something race winless streak or whatever. It's been a year and a half since he hadn't won since the Daytona in August of 21. So it's been a year and a half essentially. Dominated the race. He was in a great. His car just seemed like it was on a different level, and because Ford has been in the news with how bad they've been, and there was plenty of examples of terrible Fords on the racetrack this afternoon and evening. The fact that Ryan Blaney basically dominated the race. The only thing that stopped them from having more domination was the fact that William Byron, because of the algorithm, had the number 1 pit stall, and he has the fastest pit crew. It was giving me vibes of the Rainbow Warriors, but considering what William Byron is and where he went to school, you can't say Rainbow Warriors because he's not into that, even though the guy that runs the school's into that sort of stuff, and et cetera, et cetera. But because his pit crew is like the fastest pit crew, reminded me of those days with Jeff Gordon. But yeah, YRB, the actual most popular driver in the sport, gets his first Cup win in a long time, and looked pretty sporty in the process.
Yeah, of course, with YRB, of course, his not his first points paying win since August 2021 at Daytona. Of course, won last year's All-Star race, so but of course that one doesn't count for points. So it's been very, very long since he won, and you began to wonder, okay, when's this guy ever going to win a race? And had a lot of chances last year where he possibly could have won, but never converted it into a victory. But after the first yellow for the competition caution that they do whenever we have weather affecting races, of course, he was very competitive and was able to fight and be up front for the majority of the race, and was just able to have a good handling car, and was able to make both the bottom and the top work for the most part. The only part really where maybe you began to question if he wasn't able to win, of course, was the part, the last pit stop with about 50 laps to go, where they, or one of the last pit stops where they dropped to 5th on the restart and was on the inside line and lost momentum compared to everybody on the outside lane there. So that was definitely interesting. But he's able to get back up, fight there for first place and able to get past Whelen Byron for the lead, and ended up taking home the win. So yeah, good stuff for YRB, of course. And I think I can definitely agree with you there with the most popular driver, or the actual most popular driver, and certainly does well for being known outside the sport. I think, he showed up on a podcast with Tom Segura, so I was gonna watch that earlier, but
I didn't. Oh, he was on the one with the McKine, with him in Burt Kreischer, or was it the one with him and Christina, the Your Mom's House one?
I think it's the one with Brett Kershaw, or whatever his name's called.
Burt Kreischer, yeah.
yeah.
So that's Two Bears, One Cave.
Yeah, he was on that one. So, because I think they had a deal, NASCAR reached out to them back in Daytona, and they sent them to Daytona and everything. But yeah, Ryan Blaney was on that one recently, so definitely good exposure there for that. So, good exposure there. And of course, Ryan Blaney goes out and celebrates with the fans, kind of copying what his teammate Josef Newgarden did. So yeah, definitely a good way to make yourself popular as well. But yeah, he just had a really good car throughout the race. So credit to Penske for being able to put together a good race and being able to sweep the weekend in, both their two main series that they compete in. So yeah, definitely a great weekend there for Penske. But other than that, I mean, I think it was just about as wild as we've come to expect the 600 to be. And of course, Gen 7 car, as competitive as it's ever going to get with the 1.5-mile tracks. And of course, leads to hard racing. You have, be able to dive down on the inside and grip the paint, separating the banking from the apron, or you can run the top and keep the momentum up there and drive off the corner and hold the car on the inside and prevent him from being able to get the drive off he needs, and everything. So yeah, great racing there. And then of course we'll get into it here, but the big incident with Chase Elliott hooking Denny Hamlin there, we're going to have to see what NASCAR does with that, and if that's a penalty, if he should be suspended, or if NASCAR is going to give him a different penalty because he's Hendrick or anything. Of course, precedent has already been set with Bubba Wallace hooking Kyle Larson in the right rear, and basically the same type of incident that we saw today. So Chase Elliott, of course, I don't really like how, whenever somebody wrecks a guy, they're not going to admit it on TV and everything, because now NASCAR is going to penalize them and say, oh, it was manipulation of the race or something. I mean, that's BS and everything. Just freaking admit that you hooked the guy and sent him in the wall and everything. And I don't know, Denny correctly showed the data, which shows that Chase hooked him there, and I think park him for a race, or if not, maybe Danny can send him next week at Gateway or something like that. So we'll see what comes out of that. But that was definitely not something I want to see, especially with the next gen impacts that they have, and how hard the cars hit. And they're making adjustments to the crush panels and how it deforms when it crashes, but it's still pretty hard impact. You saw Denny's helmet impact with the steering wheel, so still pretty hard impact there. And Denny definitely looked like coming out of the car he was dazed. So definitely not what you want to see. And hopefully NASCAR does the right thing and penalizes Chase Elliott for that incident.
I mean, if they had no problem penalizing Bubba and when he didn't cop to it last fall at Vegas, when it was blatant, the same way that Clyde did that, I mean, they have a problem with transparency, number one, and they also have credibility issues. It's kind of what we were talking about earlier with the Indy 500. When you're going and doing questionable stuff with credibility, and you're not going to go and penalize the guy. I mean, I don't know when this became a thing where right-rearing people became okay. I don't know if it's because of roid rage back, 13 years ago or 14 years ago, and he was getting into it with Brad Keselowski, which is ironic because what is it? Kyle Busch and Hamlin had issues with him too. They have issues with Joey Logano. It's kind of interesting. But it's not like I'm some big fan of Denny Hamlin by any stretch. His podcast is interesting. I'm glad he owns race cars for two guys that I'm a fan of. But the reality of the world is that's just uncalled for and that's out of control. And you cannot condone that kind of racing. And if you let it go, you're basically telling Denny Hamlin that he can go and run him over. They got mad that he basically said he put Ross Chastain in the fence and copped to it. But then there's people who actually run over people and don't say that they did it on purpose. I mean, what is it? Didn't Byron run over somebody and then he basically said, "Oh, I don't know what he did." Didn't he do that? Or I might be mixing it up with somebody else earlier this season.
Honestly,
there was somebody.
I feel like I remember there was an incident like that, but I can't remember now. But yeah. I don't really like that they're basically like admitting fault or admitting that you wrecked the guy is going to be seen as manipulating the race. I don't really like that rule. We've seen plenty of times in the past where they admitted that they junked the guy, of course. I mean, there's a general rule you're not really supposed to admit that you intentionally wrecked somebody, which I can see that part, right? Which in this case, that was intentional wrecking. But, the idea of, I got into the general idea of saying or admitting fault to, I got into the guy potentially being seen as, being a manipulation of the race penalty. I don't really like that.
Yeah. I mean, in the sense of what happened here earlier today, it's race manipulation because you knocked the 11 out of the race because of a temper tantrum. And then on top of it, he might be hurt. If he doesn't pass concussion protocol, he's out for a race. You are manipulating the race and you're affecting the 11 team because now they don't have their driver. So, I mean, I really don't understand the way NASCAR does things. It's part and parcel for the reason why I have this show, why I've been on other shows. They have serious credibility issues. They need to come out on tomorrow, Wednesday, whatever day, and say, Clyde, you're sitting home this week. And I don't know who they're going to get to drive the car because Josh Berry's going to be in Portland. So I don't know who the hell they're going to get on short notice. They might have somebody drive who's in a truck. I'm trying to figure out who the hell that would be, but maybe Grant Enfinger jumps in the 9 car. I don't know, but
I mean Josh Berry, right?
No, but Berry's in Portland running the Xfinity race. So, and he's not going to be able to qualify the car because they're going to be racing. So, I mean, he'd have to start tailback, but I don't think that that's an ideal scenario. You should have somebody with the car. I mean, they're not going to suspend him. Let's be fair here. It's NASCAR. They had no problem suspending Bubba because, he's a black guy and, he went after the midget hero, Hard R. So you can't do that. People don't really care for Denny Hamlin. He drives a Toyota. And he was racing Clyde hard. And then Clyde went and right reared him. I mean, they didn't do anything to Carl Edwards all those times he did that crap either. I don't even think, did they suspend him?
No, they gave him probation.
When he went and tried to kill Brad Keselowski at Atlanta, they didn't do anything to him. I think they parked him for the day. And then
when he did it that was for the race win that they parked him. So you're talking about the Atlanta where he flew into the air.
Atlanta won first. Yeah.
They parked him for that one, but then the one where at Gateway where he right reared Keselowski on the coming to the finish, that and one,
the famous line,
they didn't do anything there other than I think they fined him and put him on probation, and they put Keselowski on probation. So which means nothing. But of course that was 2010's NASCAR where anything was basically met with probation, and now
Yeah.
you have today's NASCAR. So very curious to see how they respond to that one, because yeah, it should be at least a one race suspension there if they do the right thing. So we'll see what happens, and it's going to make for some interesting content on the podcast, and yeah, so I mean, of course, our podcast, but I mean, Danny's podcast should be a really
Denny's
interesting
podcast,
listen.
Dale's podcast, Corey LaJoy's podcast, whoever is got a podcast that's involved in the Cup Series, maybe to a lesser extent, Connor Daly and Joey Molinaro's deal. But yeah, I mean that's just ridiculous. I mean, I don't really care what your hard on is. I mean, I know he's had a hard on for Hamlin for years, but you don't. This is the thing. If you're going to use your car as a weapon, you should have to come out there and take the punishment too. You know, and if Hamlin gets to race this weekend, then that's one thing. But still, I don't care. I don't care. It's Hendrick Motorsports. Suspend the fucking guy. He deserves a suspension. He's already missed all these races. He already has a waiver anyway, so it doesn't matter if he misses another race. It's kind of like Kyle Busch when he missed the 10 races or whatever. He had 3 more DNFs with accidents or whatever. So he had basically missed 13 races. He still won the championship. So sit him. I mean, you can't do that sort of stuff. I don't understand where we've gone in motorsports where running over people is the norm. I get that Dale Earnhardt used to do it as a career, but the reality of the world is it was more about intimidation because it was his nickname and all that. And he picked and chose his spots. But even at that point, they still penalized him. You know, they penalized him at Charlotte one time and he made up 4 laps. They penalized him at Bristol and he still hooked freaking Terry Labonte coming in the line. I mean, there's no respect, and I think fundamentally that's the biggest problem. There's no respect among these drivers.
I don't think Dale would hook somebody in the right rear like that. I think he knew the ethics. You know,
he did it to Darrell.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, at Richmond, that's true,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's a short
career,
track.
so.
That's a short track, though. I think Dale Senior probably knew enough to not right rear somebody on a straightaway of a super speedway.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's the thing that I think the line's been crossed now, where people think it's okay to just go and right rear people on fast tracks, and that's not only dangerous, but it's it's really a bad look. And this car is not even safe. Really, it's a dangerous car, and it's not a very good race car in general on most circuits. So, I mean, whatever. I guess we'll talk about it next week when we see what happens with Gateway. I'll get back into the race itself. Yeah, I mean, Blaney, it's sad that we're taking the eye off of Blaney, really, because he did such a great job today. At a time when Ford is really behind the 8 ball in general. His teammates had nothing to show for the day. They were nowhere. Only the second Ford win of the season. Of course, Joey Logano got the other one at Atlanta, which is a drafting track. For Blaney to dominate this race, I think it shows and it speaks to the possibilities for him. Now that he has the win, now that he knows he's going to be in the playoffs this year, I think it opens up a lot of avenues for him to possibly, go somewhere this year. Last year, he backed into the playoffs and went, 2 rounds. But now I think with this win, this could open the door. It could really open the door for him to do something, even at a time when the Fords are well behind. I want to, give credit to some of these guys. Bubba Wallace had issues all night. bad handling car, then had penalties. He self-inflicted, whatever, team-inflicted. Came all the way back to finish fourth. Tyler Reddick was up there in the North Carolina blue Jordan car. I kind of wanted him to win the race, but they wouldn't have made the diecast. Same ways, I don't even think they made the Kurt Busch one, did they? I don't even remember if they made the Kurt Busch one. Yeah, they didn't, so that's a shame. So I guess it's fine that he didn't win. He spun out, came back. Kyle Busch spun out, came back. He had and his car was fast, and Dillon was nowhere for most of the night. And then because everyone was crashing, he came up and got a top 10. Hell, Colleague had one of their best performances of the entire year, 14th and 15th, just ahead of freaking JJ Yaley. If I'm behind JJ Yaley, any of these cars that are behind JJ Yaley should be embarrassed. Brad Keselowski hit everything but the lottery. Burton was involved in that wreck late, one of those late wrecks. Logano was involved in a late wreck with Chastain and all of them. 5, 54, 20, 22, and 10. Not Chastain. 50, so that was the Larson one, and Christopher Bell finally got finished off there, and Eric Almirillo. Speaking of Almirillo, Stewart-Haas Racing, I don't know if I've seen a team be as bad at the start of a race in a long time as the Stewart-Haas cars were. And anytime that Boyer would mention this, you had Tony Stewart basically being silent because he didn't want to say anything. And the sad thing is, dude, you're not going to be on TV the rest of this year, I don't think. I don't think he's going to be on the rest of the season because they're going to have that fruitcake Michael Waltrip with Kenny Walsh yelling and making no sense next week. Then they're going to be at Snoroma, and he's going to be drag racing the next 2 weeks, I think. And then I think that's the next. I think those are the last 2 races they have, I believe, or maybe there's one more race on the Fox schedule. I'm trying. I have to go look at the schedule offhand, but the Stewart-Haas cars were absolutely god awful. Yeah, they're taking Father's Day weekend off. It always used to be Father's Day weekend they ran at Michigan. Now all of a sudden they take it off, and then they're going to have a night race at Nashville to start the NBC portion of the schedule, and then they'll have the Chicago street race, which is going to end up ending at night too, so they can be on NBC. So he's not going to be on the rest of the season. He should have just went out there and said, heads are going to roll. We need to make some changes. This is pathetic. That's what he should have said. But, I was having a conversation with the fellow Chase Briscoe fan on Twitter, and we're like, we need to make, his car's been dog shit at cookie cutter tracks, at most of these tracks that were in Phoenix or road course all year. They've been god awful. The 41 team had one of their best performances of the year, and that came out of nowhere. The 10 was actually up there for a little bit, but they were in the tailback, and Kevin Harvick started second and was 30th after 30 laps. That's insane. How the hell do you miss it that bad? Now they'll go and say, well, we had our cars set up for a different weather condition or whatever. Newsflash, you have all the simulator stuff. You have all the technology. You know what the weather is going to be. It's not like they weren't able to look at the cars or touch the cars this morning, prior to going and getting the cars ready for the race. I don't think they were in parc fermé conditions. So how do you miss that bad? Granted, Trackhouse was in the same boat, but nobody really thinks of Trackhouse in the same way because they're only a 2-car team. And Chastain's the points leader. He just had a really bad day today. Usually when he hits someone, he does better. So today he didn't hit anybody. Maybe that's what it is. If he goes back to Gateway as he did last year and he hit everything but the lottery, maybe he'll get back to his usual self. But, this is ridiculous. I know that Tony doesn't really care because he's, with his wife and driving top alcohol dragster and all that. I know Gene Haas doesn't care because he never really has. But this is unacceptable. You have plenty of fans of Stewart Haas racing drivers across all of them. Even the 12 people that are fans of Riley Herbst. But, and the 20 that are fans of Cole Custer. But, you can't accept mediocrity and think it's okay. Like when Front Row Motorsports is outrunning you with a part-time driver, when Rick Ware Racing is outrunning you with a guy who's washed up and it never was in a stock car, when RFK is beating your ass and the car's been wrecked, in the case of Keselowski multiple times today, you can't do that. I mean, it's BS. Do you want, and here's the other thing, the rumor is that Josh Berry's going to sign to drive the 4. Are they going to keep Rodney Childers and everything there? I mean, he's not a good road racer. He's had a rough year this year because of the crew chief change. I don't know why they made the changes they made at Junior Motorsports, because it's put him back. Granted, I think certain things, I knew that whatever Gagson was going to take his crew chief with him, fine. But why they made some of the changes that they made makes no sense to me, because it's put him on the back foot. I don't know what they're going to do at Stewart Haas Racing, but they better do something. And to me, I would literally say tomorrow that there's going to be a swap. They're going to swap teams, crews, whatever. I mean, whatever it has to be. The point is I don't want to have Blickensderfer, because I know he's a never will be. And he's been a bum for most of his career. So I don't want that. I want Richard Boswell. Keep the 14 crew, the pit crew, because I have a good pit crew. I want Richard Boswell as the crew chief, and I want Johnny Klossmeyer sitting at home in the whatever war room at the shop. I'm done with Johnny Klossmeyer being the crew chief of Chase Briscoe. He's not as bad as he's looked this year. I don't buy it for a million years. He looks as bad as when he was driving the 60 car, but all of them hit the wall. All 3 of them would hit the wall every week, and they destroyed the cars. They basically put Roush out of business in the Xfinity series. But I mean, it's I can't take it anymore. I don't want to watch Cup races. The only reason I'm watching Cup races is because I'm due this show. I have a job to do as a host, and to actually journalistic integrity. It's the same reason with Formula One. I don't want to watch Formula One, but I'm involved in my own podcast and another one that's involved with Formula One. I mean, it's ridiculous. I don't want to watch Formula One. I don't want to watch Cup racing, because my guy's going to start wherever, drop tailback, and go a lap down. He went a lap down during that first segment. His car was so slow, he was passed by B.J. McLeod. B.J. McLeod. And their car is literally is a dump truck. Like that, like Waste Management has better vehicles than that. I made the tweet, and I got a like from Sebastian LaForge, a guy who used to work for Carl Long, and they had the commercial with Tony and Chase where they're doing the Mahindra tractors, and they were talking slack, they're giving each other crap. And I'm like, well, it's great that they have that Mahindra tractor up there, because, well, I'll read it. I might as well. I adjusted my Twitter handle. My Twitter handle to PG Matthew 28. So we'll talk about that later. What is it? What's sad is the Mahindra tractor is faster than the POS he's driving at Charlotte today, and it's right. I was right. He could have driven a Mahindra tractor and been better than that piece of garbage that he was driving today. That literally was the worst race car that wasn't a Legacy Motor Club car today, or the 78. I mean, absolutely unacceptable. I mean, they're making Chase Briscoe look like Clint Boyer. You didn't hire him to be Clint Boyer. You hired him to be the face, the franchise. Is he that good? Who knows? Maybe he isn't. But the fact of the matter is he has the potential to be. And you're not even giving him the opportunity to get there. They had made a move during the playoffs last year where they were taking some chances, taking some risks. The cars seemed to be a little better. And I don't know what they did in the offseason, if they were just not taking care of anything, didn't bother to make any adjustments, but they completely shit the bed and have missed the boat with this whole entire organization, the speed of these cars. They're just god awful. They need to make changes. I don't care what the changes are, but they need to make changes immediately. I don't care about Riley Herbst or how much money that dipshit brings. You could put a freaking potted plant as his crew chief. He's still going to suck. Cole Custer is still going to suck. It doesn't matter who you put as his crew chief. He's done. Mentally, he's done. The cars aren't fast. So put whoever the fuck you want to put. Put Gunther Steiner as his crew chief. He can crew chief from abroad and go and crew chief the damn car. I mean, does it matter? I mean, at this point, you could take some of the shitty people on the NASCAR team, put them on the F1 team. There won't be any difference because they all stink anyways. The only thing that Tony Stewart is run, I mean, his sprint car, Donnie Schatz is fine, and his NHRA teams are fine. So when he actually cares about something, or he has the right people in place, they're fine. He doesn't have the right people in place, and it's not fine. And he sat there multiple times this year on a broadcast and seen it, and doesn't say anything about it. That, and as somebody who I look up to in terms of Tony Stewart, it's just nauseating to me that he thinks this is acceptable. I don't think he thinks it's acceptable, but he's not doing anything about it. And that to me is weak. It really is. End of that rant. Yeah, Byron, with his second place finish, solidifies his points position. He's only 4 points behind Chastain after his horrendous day-to-day for the overall points lead. Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson, second and third. Blaney moves up. Blaney's actually second in points. 1 point behind Ross Chastain. So interesting to look at that. Truex, Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick, Denny Hamlin, O. Richard, and Joey Logano. So 10 different winners this season. Ross Chastain, the overall points leader, but he's 11th. Kevin Harvick, Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher, Bubba Wallace, and Alex Bowman. It says he would be at 269. That can't be accurate. That doesn't seem right. It looks like, based on I'm looking at it on Racing Reference. Yeah, they're putting Racing Reference has the points up more accurate, and Briscoe would still be in the 16th spot because nobody behind him has won a race yet. So yeah, so Briscoe is up by 5 points on Alex Bowman, but it's still close. Suarez and Keebler are all kind of in the mix there. We'll see what happens with that as we move along. In terms of, we'll get into the trucks. The Xfinity race right now is just about to get to halfway. John Hunter Nemechek with the lead. I don't know, something must have happened to Keebler, which is good. Something happened to Parker Kligerman, which I think every week something happens to that car. I shit on Cole Custer, and now he's running up front. So there you go. Ben Rhodes won the North Carolina Education Lottery 200. First win of the year, 7th of his career, wins $50K for the Triple Truck Challenge. Go over here, move that over. The results of the Truck Series race: Ben Rhodes, Corey Heim, Dean Thompson's best career finish, Carson Hocevar, who must be a thing with goofy, tall guys that run NASCAR are pretty goofy, and they do a great job interviewing people. First it was Gumby, on Saturday during the rain delay for Xfinity, and then Carson Hocevar earlier did a pretty good job being goofy,
It was entertaining.
interviewing and interviewing people there. So credit to both those tall goofballs for that. Hocevar with a fourth, Enfinger fifth. So so all three manufacturers represented there. Eckes, Majeski, Di Burrito, Nick Sanchez from tailback because he wasn't able to qualify, and Taylor Gray rounds out the top 10. Josh's wild card pick, Rajah Caruth, finished 11th. So I mean, Corey Heim basically was a dominant figure. Him and Carson Hocevar were the two best trucks. Dean Thompson, I don't know what happened to him. Something must have switched in his head, and he's learned how to drive a race car all of a sudden these last few weeks. But he's been fast. It shows. I think it also speaks to Tricon figuring things out. I mean, hell, David Gilliland was driving the one truck, scored stage points, finished 14th. I mean, that's a pretty good performance there for him. I'm trying to find where the hell the other, Taylor Gray, and I'm trying to find Tanner Gray. Where the hell? Yeah, he finished. Yeah, and he started on pole, Tanner Gray, and he had issues. But the Tricon trucks have been good here recently. I guess they pitted. That's what that is. But Ben Rhodes in the end used strategy to lead the last 24 laps and get that victory. Needed that one, obviously, to give himself some cushion in regards to his playoff situation. Josh moves himself up to 5th in points overall, but he's solidly now in playoffs with the win. There isn't that many races left in the regular season, to be honest. So, I mean, right now after next week, there's gonna be, because I'm trying to look at what is it, 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3. So yeah, they're gonna have 2 rounds of playoffs or whatever, 8 to 6, and then 6 to 4. So the playoffs start on the August 11th at IRP, but they only have, as it stands right now, only have 5 more races before the playoffs start. And they're going to have 4 off weeks in between that, all these races in that time too. So Ben Rhodes giving himself that win, putting himself in a great place there, Josh. I think for Corey Heim and Carson Hocevar, a lost opportunity for both of them to get another victory in this 2023 season.
Yeah, it's definitely a lost opportunity for both those drivers. I mean, Corey Heim, started 3rd, but he was probably the most dominant truck and ran up front for most of the race. But Ben Rhodes was just able to take the lead at the end when he needed to, and took off and was able to have a pretty big lead by the end of it. But Carson Hocevar ran pretty good as well. So I think both those guys really just missed opportunity to stack up on playoff points and for the playoffs. But Ben Rhodes, somebody who's been competitive in the past, but just hasn't been quite as good this year. Finally gets a win in the column for this year. So we'll see if it gives him any momentum coming up, and if he's able to parlay that later on in this year. Of course, won the 2021 championship, so we'll have to see if he's able to back that up and go out and win this title. But good run for them. Bring up our picks here that we made. Of course, Zane Smith did not have a good weekend, finishing in 23rd, so he was just out of the picture for most of the night. Rajat Kruth, of course, had a good qualifying run, and was up in the top 5, I think, in the beginning of the race, but ended up finishing 11th, so still good finish there. Of course, your picks, Corey Heim, yeah, of course, we talked about him and finishing second. Sanchez getting a top 10 there, so after starting in 34th, so that's a pretty impressive run there. So yeah, of course, solid truck race on Friday night, and the only one to actually get in on scheduled time. So for Truck Series, of course, it's going to be a while before they'll go to Gateway, and then they have Nashville, but of course there's not a whole lot of time left before their playoffs start, so not really a whole lot of time there. So it's going to be interesting to see how this playoff field lays out as we get closer to the playoffs for the Truck Series.
Yeah, and speaking of the playoffs, the top 10 in points is how they sit right now. Corey Heim is the overall points leader. He doesn't have the most playoff points. Eckes does. Both Heim and Eckes have same amount of stage wins of 4 this year. Heim, Majeski, Zane Smith, who has the second most playoff points. Enfinger, Rhodes, Eckes, Crafton, Hocevar now up to 8th, made a jump of 3 positions. Tanner Gray and Matt DiBenedetto are your top 10. Friesen is a point behind, lost 2 spots with his 22nd place finish on Friday, but he's only a point behind, so it's not that big of a deal. There's a good battle there between Gray, DiBurrito, and Friesen, only 7 points separating those 3. Nick Sanchez is in 12th. He's, 12 and 17 points out of 9th, 11 points out of 10th. So that's the battle right now to really make the playoffs. I mean, those guys are the ones that have points and or points are still in play for them. You'd assume that somebody like Ty Majeski could go and get a win. Feel like DiBurrito will need a win to solidify himself. Friesen usually seems to win a race every year. Sanchez has been on the cusp of winning. After that, anybody behind that is probably going to have to. The only way that they're definitely going to make it is with a W. We'll see how that all works out with the Truck Series. They'll be at Gateway, of course, this coming weekend. We'll probably have to recap the Xfinity Series next week and do a double because it'll be two races, because they'll be doing Portland as well, unless they get the race done before we finish here, to be determined. 116 laps into the race right now, out of 200. Third stage, John Hunter Nemechek with just under a 2-second lead on Justin Allgaier, Cold Custard, Bruckshot Jones, Josh Berry, Austin Hill, Sheldon Creed, Chandler Smith, Keebler Gibbs, and Sam Mayer. Your top 10s, Sammy Smith has a tire rub. Hocevar 12th, Justin Haley driving for Kyle Busch, because Kyle Busch said, no, I'm not going to do 900 miles in a day. So he's running 13th for Colleague cars. It's a 16. The 11 car, what is it called? Hemrick was up front, and I think he got ran into and he cut a tire or something. He had to go down pit road, or he had a flat tire and he lost the lap. I don't know where he's at in regards to getting that lap back, but behind the 8 ball at the moment. So we'll see what happens with that. Roundup time. We'll start with Formula 2 and the results from Monaco this past weekend. Iwasa, the winner of the sprint race, and Frederick Vesti, the winner of the feature on Sunday. Credit to those two drivers. Iwasa's third win of the season, second sprint win. Vesti is second win of the year. Both of them have been in features. So they'll be going to Barcelona this week before taking a few weeks off for Spielberg in Austria. Vesti takes the points lead by 5 over Teo Pocher, who had a second place finish in the sprint or in the feature race. Iwasa only scored a 10th place finish in the feature. He's third, 20 points back. Kushmaini is fourth, 40 points back. A point ahead of both Dennis Hauger, Zane Maloney, Richard Vashore, Ollie Bierman, Jehan Zaruvula. So that battle from 4th to 9th only separated by 9 points. If you count Arthur Leclerc, 15 points back in 10th, 16, and then was it 18? So, I mean, it's a pretty close battle between, I guess, Kushmaini all the way down because it can really turn and a good amount of the other drivers. And they'll be racing a bunch here in the next couple of months. You'll have 5 races or 10 total races prior to the summer break. So we'll see how the Formula 2 standings work out. In Formula 3, the results of the race, Josep Maria Marti, or Pepe Marti, won the sprint race, and Gabriele Mini won the feature race. The standings going into Barcelona, Gabriel Bortoleto is still leading the points. Gabriele Mini is 17 points back in second. Gregor Saucy third, Beganovic fourth, Paul Aaron fifth. Marty with his sprint win moves up to sixth. We'll see how that all goes. I mean, from there's a 10 points between third and sixth. Mini is kind of in the mix, but needs to have a good weekend here. They have, three rounds kind of clustered together for most of their season is coming up now. This is the heart of the season right here, up to Spa before the summer break. You have to make your bones during this part of the year, and if you don't, then you're not going to win. So that is that for Formula 2, Formula 3. NHRA, they'll be at Epping, New Hampshire for the New England Nationals this coming weekend. Get into no top, so there isn't going to be top alcohol dragster this weekend. I guess I'll be there the following weekend. Trying to see, so they don't have Mountain Motor Pro Stock list up. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. They only have 13 top fuel cars showing up this weekend, so that's promising. The usual Dan Mercier is the only one that is not a regular, I think. Everybody else is regular drivers. In Funny Car, you have, 15 cars for that class. I don't see anybody that would be, I guess Jim Campbell would be the only driver that hasn't been running all year. Everybody else has been running basically the majority of the year. Mike Smith, okay, so they had only had 13 cars. Terry Haddock showing up, so they could have had 12 if those 3 guys hadn't shown up. So it's pretty bad. It's Top Fuel and Funny Car. There goes Sam Mayer spinning out. There's going to be a caution. So yeah, Pro Mod class. Okay, so there's a Ford there. I don't know what a Rick Jones is. That's not a car. Bunch of Chevys. Everything is a Chevy outside of one car, and then a Rick Jones, whatever the hell that is. I was trying to go and look through here if any of these engines here. Chris Thorne Racing Bahrain 1. So the Bahrain 1 team is, Bond. They have him. And then I would figure, and Khalid Belushi. So that's 3 cars. Yeah, so whatever. Yeah, those are the only 2 the pro classes, or 3 pro classes that are running this weekend. The standings for Top Fuel going into this weekend's race: Steve Torrence has a 17-point lead on Brittany Force, 27-point lead on Austin Prock, 31 on Justin Ashley, 34 on Leah Pruitt. So close battle right now for the points in Top Fuel. In Funny Car, Matt Hagan has a 13-point lead on Ron Capps, 40 on Robert Height, 62 to Alexis DeJoria in 4th, and Tim Wilkerson 5th, 87 points back. Chad Green, 91 points back in 6th. Then I'm just curious, since we're going over there. So yeah, in the following week, they'll be racing at Bristol for the Thunder Valley Nationals. They still won't be running Pro Mod, Factory Stock, Pro Stock. All 4 pro categories will be there. No Top Alcohol Dragster. Their next race, at least next national event, will be at Norwalk later in the month of June. But Tony already said he's not going to be there because he'll be with his NHRA team. Because that's his priority. A Rally Italy coming up this weekend for the WRC. I'll go into that there. Cali Rovampera with his win this past race, past round at they're showing the ones. Yeah, so at Rally Portugal, takes the points lead by 18 or 17 on Otanek, and was it 29 on Sebastian Ogier, who's not even running every race. The Toyota Racing Team leads Hyundai by 32 points in the constructors standings. Trying to go and look at, the big news, I think, is there's a possibility of the U.S. hosting a round of the World Rally Championship for the first time since the late 80s. That would be really cool to see that, and then have the 2 Sebs race here, and in Loeb and Ogier. That would probably be a great thing. But we'll see what happens with that. We'll talk about it next week on GSP, what happens at Rally Italy. It's become a dirt rally, I think, compared to back in the day when it was a pavement rally. In Formula E, they'll be in South Africa or Indonesia. My bad. Jakarta, Indonesia. For the children of Indonesia, they'll be racing for 2 rounds. Oh, it's a purpose-built circuit. Wow, credit to them. Something they don't usually do. The points standings going into that race, they've tightened up here in recent races. Cassidy, with 2 consecutive wins, has taken the points lead by 20 over Pascal Verline. Jake Dennis, last 2 races, came back to life. He's only 5 points behind Verline. Mitch Evans is in this mix in 4th. John Eric Verne, former champion, in 5th. So he's the first former champion. Antonio Felix da Costa, another one, he's in 6th. Sam Bird, Buemi, former champion. Jake Hughes, Rene Rast round out the top 10. Defending at Formula E champion Stoffel Van Doren is in 11th. There's some driver changes, as I mentioned. There will be coming to go through here. Roberto Murray or Mary or whatever the hell his name is going to be taking over at Mahindra. What is it? Broadcast Jacob. What? Vernon K's okay. Saunders, Carmichael, Brown, Nelson Piquet Jr., Oliver Askew, and Kelvin Vanderlinde. Ben Edwards will make his return again. Be lead commentator for Jakarta. Commentary box by Karun Chandok. I guess what do you call Dario Franchitti decided to quit. So oh well. So yeah, and then the next race after that is a few and like what is it, 23 weeks after that will be in Portland. So the first race out on the West Coast for Formula E in the United States. That's we'll see how that all goes. World Superbikes will be at Misano this coming weekend. It's been a benefit for Alvaro Bautista and Ducati in recent for this whole entire season. Toprak Raskat-Lioku is second in points, but he made an announcement that he's going to be moving to BMW next year, which also basically means that he's not going to be going to MotoGP, which is pretty crazy. It also shows how weak Yamaha is in general. They did sign back Roberto Locatelli. So, I mean, that's something. Johnny Ray will stay with Kawasaki. They don't know whose team it'll be. Alvaro Bautista. No race until the end of 24. Raskat-Lioku is going to BMW for the factory team. And me and 6 of the 10 factories is up for grabs. Battle for BMW, we don't know. Other factory seats, blah, blah, blah. Independence. Yeah, it's a 3 top 10 minutes. It's 2-year deal. Will be staying. Okay. All right. So something. Garrett Gerloff will be back next year because he has a multi-year deal with the privateer or with the semi-factory BMW team. So the American presence will still be there. So right now we only know 5 riders that'll be on the grid for 2024. Point standings, Bautista up by I think, was it? 70 points, 69 points, and in all in reality 0-1-0-3, 103 points on Andrea Locatelli and 136 points on Johnny Ray. So that championship's basically over. And Indy next will be at Detroit this coming weekend for the Detroit Grand Prix. First time they'll be running on the streets of Detroit, not Belle Isle, since 1990 or 91, somewhere around there. They should have run the Freedom 100, but whatever. Standings going into that race, Christian Rasmussen leading 2 teammates. Nolan Siegel, he's leading Rasmussen over Siegel by 18 points. Then Danielle Frost is in third. Matteo Nannini, Hunter McElray, Josh Green, Louis Foster, Jacob Abel, James Rowe, and Kiffin Simpson round out the top 10. Jamie Chadwick's in 15th in points. Ernie Francis, 14th in points. I'm not sure if he's running, if he's still with the team at this point. So that's something to find out here this coming weekend. Let's see if they actually have the entry list and all that stuff down there. They don't have it there. See if I can go on their race thing. Event detail. They don't have a spotter guide. They don't have that either. Salary returns HMD for partial program. Yeah. So they're gonna new hours, real days activity, 1.7 mile, 10 turn street circuit in the city itself. So it'll be cool to see that again. Similar to the track they used to run for back in the late 80s, early 90s, as I said, for Formula One. Then it became kart, and then Trans Am also used to run on that circuit too. So with that, let's go and preview the Detroit Grand Prix for the IndyCar series, coming off of the Indianapolis 500 to go and have to move right to a very hectic and busy street circuit, 27 cars on that racetrack too. It's going to be a busy race weekend. They're going to have one practice on Friday. They'll have one practice on Saturday before they qualify. Then they'll have a 30-minute warm-up on Sunday prior to the race, which will be on NBC. So, I mean, plenty of entertainment, plenty of things to look at. But, I mean, in using the past results, I mean, yeah, it's 1991. Yeah. They only ran there 3 years. 88 was the last time Formula One ran in Detroit. Emerson Fittipaldi won there twice, and Michael Andretti won there once. So there you go. I mean, we go back to what we've seen so far this year, Josh, in terms of IndyCar and results on street circuits. We had Marcus Ericsson win at St. Petersburg, and then we've had Kyle Kirkwood win at Long Beach. And, I mean, so two different winners this year. Palou has had 2 podiums this year. Pato O'Ward has 3, but he's had issues. He had issues at Long Beach. He's now had issues at Indianapolis. They haven't updated the results because they didn't add Indianapolis to that. But yeah, so I mean, you have this race. They have it as Belle Isle on this, so it tells you how bad Racing Reference is. Oh, look, Riley Herbst hit the wall. What a shock. So I mean, it's hard to say who to pick. I mean, this is a brand new circuit for everybody. No, I mean, there's guys that work on the teams that were there probably all those years ago, but none of these drivers have raced on this circuit. What are you looking, or what do you think about in regards to, or who do you think is a player and your winner pick, and et cetera, your picks for this coming weekend at Detroit on a brand new circuit? First time they've been on this layout in over 30 years. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a brand new layout that nobody has any experience on. But when you look at the results this year of who's been good, or who is dominant so far, and at least in qualifying, practice, and race, I mean, I think you have to look at a guy like Romain Grosjean, who was dominant at St. Petersburg, along with Scott McLaughlin. They're both really good there. And Grosjean was also very, very quick, even though he didn't lead a lap, but he was also up there competing at Long Beach, getting second place there. So for this weekend at the new Detroit Circuit Grand Prix, I'm going to go with Romain Grosjean winning the race. I think he's finally, he's been knocking on the door for IndyCar win, IndyCar victory, and I think he finally gets it done here. It's just been really good on the street circuits so far to start the year. Didn't have a good Indianapolis 500, of course, crashed out, but he wasn't really, I don't think they were really all that competitive either this year there. But wild card on Long Beach. Let's see. Let's go with. I'm gonna go with Agustin Canapino as my wild card this weekend. obviously they were pretty impressive at St. Petersburg, scored a 12th place finish. Indianapolis Grand Prix, I mean, they were off a lap down at the Indianapolis Grand Prix, and then I think for briefly, they were up front at Long Beach for maybe a restart. So let's see what they can do here this weekend at a new circuit, and if they can parlay that into decent results. So should be an interesting weekend. Of course, with the brand new circuit, of course, they're probably already done a lot of simulations, so these drivers aren't going to go in there completely lost going into this weekend, but they certainly will be a new challenge compared to what they've had in the past, and we'll see if this circuit leads to a little bit more entertaining racing. Of course, we know that Bill Hill wasn't always that entertaining when it came to the actual racing, and probably left a little bit to be desired. So hopefully we get a good weekend to follow up the Indy 500.
Makes me wish they still went to the Milwaukee Mile like they used to do for so many years after Indianapolis. Going to a great short oval. Indy cars on short ovals are great action and a lot of traffic and having to really race. I don't know what happened to Sheldon Creed. Now he's 3 laps down. That's pretty bad. Looks like the one car is still having problems. I think he's up pretty good. Right front corner. After his incident. 50 laps to go there. For me, I mean, I look at the results from earlier this year. I'm just looking through St. Pete and then looking at Long Beach. I mean, I think the person to take, I mean, you picked Romain Grosjean. He's of course, a former Formula One driver. And I'm going to go with Marcus Ericsson. The guy is really good on street circuits. He's pissed. Thinks he should have won another Indy 500. He's been really pretty solid the whole entire year. So I think Ericsson's the pick for this week, and I'm going to go I don't know if I spelled his name, Ericsson to win. And then I'm going to pick Marcus Armstrong, so 2 Marcuses, and 2 teammates at Cheap Ganassi Racing as my wild card pick, because frankly, he's been showing performance gains. Finished 8th at Long Beach. At Alabama, he finished 11th. He didn't have as good of a run. He finished 15th at Indianapolis Road Course. But Ericsson at a top 10 there. At St. Petersburg, Marcus Armstrong finished 11th as well. So, I mean, I think that is pretty... If there's one person that would probably be a good wild card pick, I can't pick the likes of Callum Ilott, and most of the other people that are in this mix are pretty god-awful. So, those are our picks. I mean, it'll be a new configuration, as we said. If you want to watch the old races from back in the 90s and the 80s, I mean, Senna was really good at this racetrack back in the day in Formula One. There'll be a huge passing zone out of the final corner going into the hairpin. That'll be turn 1, a left-hand hairpin. That's not really passing zone over there. That's kind of a Mickey Mouse kind of section. There's a short straight. That's not as much of a passing zone. The straightaway prior to the last couple of corners is probably the second best passing zone on the track. So generally speaking, there's 2 passing zones, and it's a little bit wider of a circuit. So hopefully we'll see some good action there at Detroit this coming weekend. compared to where we've been with Belle Isle over the years. Spanish Grand Prix at Circuit Barcelona, Catalunya, whatever the hell they call it. What is it? AWS Gran Premio. Yeah, so it's the Spanish Grand Prix sponsored by AWS. They'll have 2 practice sessions, of course, on Friday, 1 on Saturday leading into qualifying. Race will be at the usual European time. Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, yeah, of course. And then they put it back to the original configuration that they had when they first went there. So that's a good news. It means there's going to be a longer run, more on throttle time there. Turn 1, of course, will be the best passing zone. The second best passing zone will be into that other hairpin down at the back end of the racetrack. But it's not exactly known as a great circuit for action. I already said that Max Verstappen's my pick because we're just going to keep on alternating that, I think, for the rest of the year. If Max Verstappen actually loses a race, and if Red Bull actually loses a race this year, I'll be shocked at this point because their car is so much better than everybody else that it's basically a joke. I know how everybody whined about Lewis Hamilton, but I think even when Lewis won, it was a little more interesting than this. Fish lips to win, and then my podium, I'll put. Oh man! So Connor Mozak, who hits everything but the lottery, hit the wall just now. Fish lips to win. I'm trying to think. I think Checo, as I said on the Grid Talk preview, I say he's going to finish second, and then Lewis will finish third as my picks for this Sunday at the Spanish Grand Prix. What say you, Josh, in terms of your podium winner and podium picks for this week?
Well, I'll just swap with you and say somehow Checo Perez recovers from a bad weekend at Monaco, and he's able to win this weekend at Spanish Grand Prix. Verstappen second, and I'll go with Alonso podium at his home circuit.
Shoot. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense since, Alonso's been finishing on the podium all year. He's done a really good job with that car, unlike his teammate, Daddy's Money. You look at, Fish Lips. He won his first career race at Barcelona all these however many years ago. Was it 2016, I think? So it's a great circuit, great place for him. Place he has a lot of fond memories. So probably going to add to that. He broke his tie with Sebastian Vettel for most wins as a Red Bull driver. Now he's gonna, or I think he tied or broke it. So now I think he's gonna get to number 39 here this weekend, more than likely. Okay, and then the Xfinity race is still going on. We got 37 to go. It's a good battle, actually, between John Hunter Nemechek and Justin Allgaier. I think they're cutting down. I don't know how many cars are left on the lead lap, but
Austin Hill coming into the picture as well.
Yeah, Austin Hill's actually in this. Yeah, so they have a 3-horse race. Austin Hill and John Hunter Nemechek basically 1 and 1A for this championship so far this year. And then you have Justin Allgaier, who's been sneaking up there here in recent weeks, trying to get that win. And you cannot forget that Keebler Gibbs is only 3.5 seconds behind, and he won. I think he won both stages. So another thing to look at. speaking of the Xfinity, I think we should just go with that because we're not really going to have a recap of this race prior to the show finishing. But yeah. So the Xfinity series will be at Portland for the second time. Of course, NASCAR trucks were at Portland in the past. AJ Allmendinger won this race last year for the Xfinity series. It was a rain race. They only had 2 races at Portland in the trucks. Greg Biffle and Andy Houston, 99 and 2000. Taylor Gray actually won the ARCA West Series race there. I know at 21, and Jake Drew was driving for that racist prick Brunati. And K&N Pro Series going back in the day. Herschel McGriff in 1986 on his way to his K&N or the Winston West Championship. Then decades until Jim Englebright, Pat Long, Luis Martinez Jr., Greg Pursley. Wow, Mark Martin actually won there in 1995. Interesting. And a
Portland?
Northwest Tour. Yeah, he won in 95 in the Northwest Tour race. And Lance Hooper, Tom Hubert, Rudy Revac, Steve Petty, the road racer. I don't know who that guy is or who that one is. So, not a big history for Portland and the Xfinity series or road. I mean, they have plenty of road courses. Going back, of course, there was rain, so can we really take a whole lot from that? I'm not sure. I think that was a race where Jesse Iwuji tried to intentionally wreck Keebler Gibbs. That was kind of funny.
Oh, yeah, I
and then he
remember
failed at it. AJ Allmendinger won over Myatt Snyder, who was driving for Jordan Anderson Racing. Austin Hill was second or third after starting second. Josh Berry, Justin Allgaier, Hemrick, Gibbs, J.J. Ailey for Carl Long. Gagson and Alex LeBay was your top 10. So we'll go with that first, Josh. They don't have an entry list out yet because, hell, I don't even know what the logistics are for the Xfinity Series. I mean, at least they're going to get the race done here shortly. But I'm not really sure who's going to be in this race. So it's hard to make picks. Yeah. I know... what is it? I saw some news for
Jordan
somebody.
Taylor is going to be in this one.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Jordan Taylor is going to be racing. Who is he going to be racing for?
Colleague.
Colleague, or he'll be in the 10. He'll be in the 10 car. Yeah, so he'll be in the 10 car. Dylan Lupton is going to be coming back randomly to run a couple of these races. I think he's going to run this race in Snoroma in the Xfinity series with his family sponsorship. I'm not really sure who else, but I mean, there's trying to go and look through all that, blah, blah, blah. No, don't have anything there. Oh, I don't know. Like, how the heck do you make picks? I mean, it's the usual suspects, the regular drivers. Sure that some of these smaller teams are gonna run some one-offs or road racing specialists. I mean, I remember Parker Kligerman talking about it on Saturday, how it's an opportunity race, and considering how bad he's run in the last couple of months, it's definitely what he needs to possibly back into the playoffs because he hasn't run well enough to be there. And there's some other people in there. I mean, yeah, Gibbs dominated the race. Creed led a lap and got ran over, got wrecked. Anthony Alfredo actually qualified on pole. Jesus. And then our Motorsports Chevy last year. Connor Mozak, who hits a lot of cars. He was in that race last year. Trying to look through some of these. Yeah, Sam Mayer. I mean, for me, if you need a minute to kind of think of somebody, I'm just gonna go.
I
I'm gonna
already made
go
my
with.
thought, but you can go ahead though.
Okay, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll go with Austin Hill, um, winning this race. He finished third last year, so I'm gonna have to go with the series regular, full-time regular here, winning the race. And then my wild card is gonna be Myatt Snyder, of course, racing. If the news is still correct, then I'm gonna go with Myatt Snyder as my wild card. Because he's driving a Joe Gibbs racing car this weekend, and he'll be driving at Portland once if they're able to get there. So yeah, that's who I'll roll with this weekend.
Yeah, that's a good pick because I didn't even know if that is. Yeah, that's what it is, and yeah, he's definitely a good choice because that 19 car has been fast all year, no matter who they put in the car. For me, I'm gonna go out there, go out on a limb. I'll go Parker Kligerman because, frankly, he needs a win. So, and he won Mid Ohio in the 75 truck last year for, I forget what the owners of the 75 Food Country team are. But Parker Kligerman, and I'll make Jordan Taylor my wild card because why not? He already got indoctrinated and got the baptism by fire, getting run into and run over by I don't know how many people at Coda. So now he's used to it. The Colleague 10 car has been pretty decent this year. I mean, not to the same level as the 19 car, but road racing specialist. We'll see what he can do there. I have to see, do they even have the truck list up there? They have the race page up there. They'll be running on Saturday afternoon. The race. They don't have anything up there. Doesn't look like they have an entry list. Of course not. So I'll go and I'll start with the trucks at Gateway. I'm just gonna go over here. I think Zane Smith won there last year for some reason. I fear, or no, Corey Heim actually won. Okay, Corey Heim won the race last year over Christian Eckes. Chandler Smith was third. Stuart Friesen, Johnny Sauter was driving for the Door Sport at that point. D. Burrito, Derek Kraus was in the 19. Ben Rhodes, Zane Smith started second, finished 9. Chase Purdy was 10th. Rajah Caruth actually finished 11th, driving for Spire that day. 23 trucks were on the lead lap. Carson Hocevar wrecked. What a shocker. Chris Wright crashed. There's certain things you can rely on in the world. One of them is Chris Wright crashing. So for me, I'm gonna go and take Corey Heim to win. He won last year. He seems to have a lot of momentum going these days in the series. You need to getting extra wins and getting those extra points is necessary later on in the year, of course, when you get to the playoffs, with how crazy they are and how long they take to get through the playoffs and a different variety of tracks that they're going to race at. So 22, 20, so 12. So my wild card pick, is going to be I think I said Jake Garcia was going to be my wild card pick. I think, right? Like
Yeah.
you were going to pick Raja Caruth every week, and I was going to pick. Or I picked Nick Sanchez last week, but unfortunately now he's actually in the top 12. And there's like essentially 23 drivers that have run the whole season. So I'm gonna go with Jake Garcia to be my wild card pick at Gateway. He does have experience there um, at Gateway, so I'll go with that. How about you, Josh?
I'll pick Christian Eckes to win this week. That'll be my pick. Ran well at Gateway last year, so I'll pick him. He's already got 2 wins on the year, so he's been running pretty well so far to start this season. My wild card pick, I'll go with Tyler Ingram, who hasn't gotten a win yet this year, but he has 1 top 5 and 3 top 10s, and maybe he can get a top 10 finish here at Gateway this season.
That is wild because he's definitely had his struggles for sure. Even Christopher Bell was driving for that organization. Didn't really have much to show for it a couple weeks ago, North Wilkesboro. So I'm surprised you didn't go and take your boy Raja. If I knew you weren't going to take him, I would have taken him. But it's all good. Maybe Raja goes and gets us both, and he goes, "Oh, look at that," because he's a bat out of hell because he's on fresh tires. So they're going to have to pit, right? Is that what it is?
Well, Austin Hill just pitted a couple minutes ago, and now he's flying. And I don't know, laps since, they have to, because there's no way, I don't think they can make it to the end, because they said 56, well, I guess you're at 58 laps since pit for Allgaier and John H. Nemechek. I like that, very brief case like there.
J.H. Nemechek,
yeah. So they've got to make at least one more stop.
Yeah, so they're all now they're starting to go. I don't know if Hocevar's gonna. It seemed the way they're focusing on him, it sounds like he's gonna go and he's gonna roll the dice.
No, he's coming in. Oh no, I thought he was coming into pit.
It looked like he was, but right now both Allgaier and Nemechek are still on the track. Keebler Gibbs took 2 tires, right side tires, and enough fuel to go. And I think Austin Hill should pass him here. If he passes him, then he has the effective lead of the race. Yeah, so that has happened. There's only 11 cars on the lead lap at the moment. Sammy Smith, who is a lead lap car. What's it called? Yeah. He did 2 tires as well. Yeah, and then Kaz Gralla. Chandler Smith fell back a bunch. Yeah, so now it's going to get sketchy here. All of them are going to have to pit. Yeah, so we'll go and give that a minute to kind of simmer. John Hunter went low, but didn't come in. Okay. So we'll see what happens with that. 9 laps to go here in the Xfinity race at Charlotte. 10 cars on the lead lap. Gibbs only has 2 right side tires. I think John Hunter Nemechek is going to come in this time. I don't know if he meant to come in the last time and he missed the pit road. But, he's definitely coming in this time because he's nowhere near. Okay.
Allgaier lost it too.
Yeah, he about hit the fence. Nemechek is still running. I thought he was going to pit again. Didn't. I don't know what they're waiting on. They're going to have to pit.
Unless they're... Let me see what Twitter says. Are they going to try to stretch it? I think they might be trying to stretch. It doesn't sound like it.
I mean, Allgaier hasn't won this year, so
Fuel
it's
mileage
kind of
race. Yeah.
He hasn't won this year. Nemechek, it doesn't matter. It's not that big of a deal for him. I'm surprised Hocevar isn't going for it. Custer looks like is going to take that gamble. Bruckshot Jones isn't. Neither is Haley. And Austin Hill, I think if Allgaier and John Hunter and them all have issues, it's going to be Austin Hill getting another victory. Because he's making up bleep tons of time here, and he's less than he's 27 seconds. So I mean, it's basically 3/4 of a lap to make up. Passing his teammate there. He's got 3/4. Yeah, he's basically 3/4 of a lap behind. 5 laps to go. John Hunter is going in a mega save mode now because he went from being like right around Allgaier to losing tons of time. What is it? Josh Berry just got passed by Austin Hill. Josh Berry is now in 16th. Or he's clutching it, yeah. He's probably clutching it now.
Who, Allgaier?
I would assume, because he doesn't have that much throttle trace. He's like basically dumping out of it. So is John Hunter.
He's lifting into turn 1.
Yeah, and he's blipping the throttle there, just trying to get a little bit of a run. John Hunter keeps on running low. Yeah. I mean, they might be able to make, I mean, the 3 laps to go. They have enough time. I mean, Austin Hill might be able to get back and get to Custer, maybe, in 3 laps. And that's really all I can think of. I mean, the 20 car is going dog slow. I mean, if he's going that slow, then I don't know how slow Custer's going. Because Allgaier looks like he's running pretty solid there.
Yeah.
Parker Retzlaff right now is in 7th. I mean, credit to him. The teammates, the Jordan Anderson teammates, are 6th and 7th right now. Kyle Sieg is in position to possibly get a top 10 finish. 1 lap down right now. They're coming to the white, so whatever happens here, this race is over. Allgaier cross star finish. He's got a near 8-second lead on John Hunter Nemechek, getting through 1 and 2, shaking the car around. Not sure where he's at fuel-wise, getting caught up by Carson Hocevar, who's probably going to pass him to get back on the lead lap. And look at that. Justin Allgaier, fuel mileage, is going to win. First time in 2023, the 84 hours of Charlotte here. I think that's Junior Motorsports' first win of the year, too.
First win of the year, and got the commissary on the hood.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool, too.
Yeah, so that'll be a cool, if they make that car, it'll be a cool car. Top 3 didn't pit. Allgaier, John Hunter, Cole Custer, Austin Hill did. Keebler Gibbs. Retzlaff, they swapped him with Jeb, so I guess Jeb, I don't know, something happened. Hocevar 8th, Bruckshot Jones 9th, and Sammy Smith finish out the top 10. So good job for little Gator. Close race there, so no family, but of course his kids are probably sleeping. The 92 just crossed the line. I was like, I didn't know what the heck that was. I guess Josh Williams wanted to make sure he finished the race. Well, that 7 car had a lot of gas because now he's doing donuts. So we'll get back to the preview. We'll do the preview for Gateway. Second time the Cup Series will be there. Fords were pretty good, and the Toyotas. Last year, Joey Logano won the race. Late race pass on Kyle Busch. Kurt Busch finished 3rd. Ryan Blaney 4th. Eric Almirola 5th. Martin Truex Jr., Eric Jones, Ross Chastain, Christopher Bell, and AJ Allmendinger from 35th to 10th because he didn't get to qualify the car, so he had to start tailback. Reddick started 4th, he finished 16th. Christopher Bell started 3rd, 9th. Austin Cindric finished 11th. Chase Briscoe started on pole and had a tire problem. Finished 24th. Only 3 cars fell out of the race. Kevin Harvick had a huge wreck going into turn 3. Turn 3 there. So, and then Corey LaJoie had a power steering issue. Corey LaJoie had the engine issue, and Cody Ware had a power steering issue. Denny Hamlin, that was a race where Denny Hamlin and Ross Chastain got into it. So, Josh, you can go first here with your picks for Gateway.
Yeah, I'll go with who's been good this year. I'm gonna go with Kyle Larson. I'll pick him to win this race. He's been really good, of course, overall this season, and he had a tough result in the 600, so maybe can bounce back and get a win in the Midwest out at Gateway. And my wild card, let me pull that up. Wild card, we'll go with Austin Cindric as wild card this weekend. See if we can, he also had a tough go this past weekend at Charlotte. Finished and crashed on the backstretch and finished 31st. So let's see if he can make something better out of it. Hasn't been really that good this season, but maybe he can recover at Gateway.
Yep. He has experience there, so it's not out of the realm with trucks. I'm not so sure about the Xfinity series, but I know he ran trucks there. So as it stands, this is the points report, so this is the most updated points report. He is 4 points ahead of, so Bowman is actually 4 points ahead of Chase Briscoe in 16th. So now he is in the playoff, even though he's missed 3 races. For me, you picked Larson. I'm trying to go through here. Phoenix, looking at short tracks. You got Martinsville. And Larson has won 3 short track races already this year. The only other pseudo track that is somewhat short, it's not a short track, is Phoenix. And that was William Byron. So that's what I'll do. I'll go with William Byron as my winner. Byron to win. And my wild card will be Chase Briscoe. not because of anything he did today, but the best work that 14 team has been able to do has been on these type of tracks. It's an opportunity. He qualified on pole last year. He has experience in an ARCA car and truck, and they had a good race car. So we'll see what happens with that on Sunday at Gateway. All right, so Josh, let us know your exploits on iRacing and other sims and what you did this past weekend, what you're planning to do this weekend.
Yeah, of course, talked about it earlier, but, ran the iRacing Coca-Cola 600. Never ran it before until now. And, ran pretty well. I finished 7th in my run at the Coca-Cola 600. Started 19th and made my way through the field. It was a pretty intense race, honestly. There was 17 cautions, so there's a lot of wrecking and everything. And there's, some cautions and restarts where we just had caution, restart, race 2 laps, caution on the restart, and everything. So that was definitely a interesting sequence there, trying to master the restart, having an opportunity afterwards if I messed up to have another go and, just continue to run the race. But, on the green flag runs, definitely feel like that was like maybe one of the harder races that I've had to do in terms of pace and, being able to keep my position throughout the field. Feel like, there's not really any time, and maybe because of the way the cautions fell, because there were so many, there was not really a whole lot of time to really kind of, cruise, I guess, throughout the race. I really only had, I think, one green flag run where I was just kind of able to settle in and just kind of take care of the tires and everything. So it was a pretty interesting race. Being able to do that. My right arm shoulder area was kind of sore afterwards from turning left for 4 hours. So that was kind of interesting there because I don't know. I mean, it wasn't like really physically taxing, but I felt like based on how my arm was feeling, I was like, well, I've never really had to work this hard. The Indy 500 and the Daytona 500, I felt like were more mentally taxing than they were physically. But I mean, it's from a sim racing, I mean, obviously you're not like truly like physically taxed, but you can be like, well, definitely doing a little bit of work here. So that was a little bit interesting there. But racing wise, I mean, it was very similar to how the Cup race played out in terms of the type of racing that they were doing. The high line was seemingly the way to go to defend, and also I think even passing, I think it was better to try to get around on the high line. I feel like long green flag runs, you could get on the bottom and make passes there, but I think on a shorter run, the high line was the way to go because it's really harder to be able to get to the bottom and then come up off the turn to turn 2 and turn 4 to be able to make a pass. There's just not a whole lot of momentum to be able to carry that the top affords you. So that was that. But on the other hand, running the top, running it really hard, trying to defend or get around, of course, wears out the tires pretty quickly. So if you ran the top too much, then you also ran the risk of wearing out the right front too early and then not having a whole lot left. That happened to me on one run where I think I restarted in the top 5 and then fell out all the way back to like 12th or 13th because it was just too much on the right front and wore it out too quickly. So and then there was another run where I started from the back and then made or back of the field, so about maybe like 18th or 17th place, and made my way up to I think just outside the top 10 before another caution fell out. So and that was on a long green flag run. So that was pretty interesting being able to do that. Didn't have too many incidents. There was one guy that was just driving super aggressively and was trying to do anything he could to get around people, and we were racing in a pack, and then he cut in front of me, and then we made contact and got some incident points there. So he had been racing pretty aggressively, and I think led a good chunk of the race, so kind of took the guy out. But I mean, he cut me off there, and I didn't even really have any time to react to it, to be honest. So it's not even like I gave him a choice or anything. It just literally just happened. Couldn't do anything about it. But given the way guy was driving, not really sorry about it either. So that's that. But wanted to try to be able to compete for the win, but didn't really have good long run pace. Well, not long, I wouldn't say long run, but didn't have like quite short term pace where you had to be able to drive and maintain your position, and then be able to still have just enough, versus where you had a long run where you were had to be able to take care of the tires. So that's something I have to work on. And then also I think I need to work on figuring out the right amount of wheel input to be able to save those tires for the end. So got to be able to probably do some research or something and look into how much wheel input do I need to be able to save the tires. I think that's something I've kind of struggled on in iRacing in general, just being able to really maintain the tires throughout the course of the tire run. So we'll have to look into that. But yeah, definitely solid race. Ran two short races on there earlier this week, and said, well, think I can do this. So I was able to do that and get in and compete in it. Of course, didn't have the conflict of the real 600 because it was raining, obviously. So, I felt comfortable in being able to do that and not miss any action. So, for the real race, so that was good. But this week on iRacing, I think going to be able to do. Let's see, they've got Cup at Gateway, Xfinity at Iowa. So probably look at doing that. Trucks at Gateway as well. At the oval, let's see, the other oval series, you got the Open Wheel C series. The Indy cars are at Auto Club, so that should be a good one. Of course, I always enjoy running there, and it's at the daytime, so it should be a lot of opportunities to have passing and grip differences and tire wear, so that should be fun to run around. Gen 4 series is at the old Texas Motor Speedway before the repave, so that should be fun. 87 cars are at Bristol, so should be good there. Maybe try that one as well. Road course wise, let's look at that one real quick. I think iRacing doesn't have Portland yet, so that's why they don't have Portland on iRacing for the Xfinity series. Road course wise, there's the Honda Civic series running at Spa, so that should be pretty fun. You got the MX5s competing at Laguna Seca. Always good series there. Let's see. Road racing wise, other series to compete in. Maybe the Formula Fords. I think, let me see, where are they competing in? Trying to see where, because that's a good series as well. Pull that up. Let's see here. Formula Ford Rookie Series. Where is that? At Okayama International Circuit. So that's also a good one as well. And then another, the Production Lab series racing at the Tsukuba circuit as well, 25-minute time race. So yeah, as always, plenty of opportunities to compete on iRacing. Definitely focus more on the oval side this past week with the Coca-Cola 600, but now probably try to do more more of the road racing stuff. We'll see later on in the week if I'm able to do that. So, yeah, of course, should be, always have a good opportunity to race on iRacing and everything. So, should be fun to be able to do that later on this week. But, glad I was able to do the 600. And, one thing that I'll say for the 600 versus the Indy and the Daytona 500s is that this one I did not crash out of in my first attempt. The Indy 500, the first time I tried it, crashed out, and Daytona 500, the first time that I did it, I did not actually crash out, but ended up finishing 4 laps down. I think that the first time I did Daytona after many incidents, so this one was pretty good that I was not able to get any major incidents and able to finish in the top 10 on the first try at the 600, so that was pretty good. But yeah, it's iRacing, of course, online. You can go watch. I did stream that. Did not have any mic input audio. I don't know what happened, but I thought I had my mic input working, but I guess not. I guess somehow Twitch didn't pick it up, but the audio is on there, or the race stream is on there, so you can still hear the iRacing game. You just don't hear what I had to say or anything. So if you just want straight up footage of what I did, go on Twitch TV/UCLR2 and watch the 600. And if you have 4 hours to kill or something and watch my onboard video there, you can see that. So have that one up there. Of course, you want to relive the Indy 500. That one is up there from last year as well on there. So go on my Twitch and see that. And then my personal Twitter page at JP Huffine, of course, had all the takes there from the 600. Of course, agreeing with Denny Hamlin's take, showing the data from tonight's crash at the 600, and his opinion on what Chase Elliott did. So definitely agreed with that one, retweeting that. And of course, all my other takes that I have, from all the racing that we had this weekend, of course, on my Twitter page at JB Huffine. So follow there. And then the YouTube page for this channel, of course, if you want to see what we have on video form, go on YouTube, Grip Strip Podcast, go on there and follow subscribe to our channel, like and subscribe to our videos and comment, whatever, and interact with us. So, of course, we'll have video of this show later on this week. We'll have that up there hopefully. So, be able to go on there and see our show. If you want to listen, have it on the background, do whatever. So go on there and subscribe and follow our page. So, of course, yeah, glad to do it as always, and everything. Be able to go on here, talk about, this deal is greatest day in motorsports, of course, as always. Every year we're able to do it, be able to, enjoy all the racing we have, in part because of all the, military that gave their lives and, sacrifice for this country to have, freedoms that we have, and, being able to enjoy the freedom, be able to enjoy racing, be able to, whether you're a fan or you're participating in it, it's a great freedom to have to be able to, compete and watch in motorsports.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, wouldn't do it with anyone else, of course. I mean, the sacrifices made by those men and women to give us the freedom that we have today to be able to do our show, to be able to live our lives. It's the unfortunate byproduct of war, and the sadness that comes with that, and the bad that comes with that. But thankful for those men and women for what they did. And what they can, and the men and women are still here, what they continue to do at this time, and just, of course, Memorial Day weekend, but in general. You can find me at PG Matthew 28 on Twitter. I think that is what I made it. Or I said PG Matthew, right? Go over here, check over here, PG Matthew 28. I changed it. Because my Instagram, Philip G. Matthew 28 on Instagram, so kind of making them all kind of similar. Our Twitter page at Grip Strip Pod on Twitter. You can also catch me. I was on the Grid Talk podcast for the preview with bad sound, of course. So you'll forgive me for that. We'll see if I'm going to be on for the Spanish Grand Prix shows. Probably not for qualifying, maybe for the race, but that's if I want to put myself through the pain of watching the Spanish Grand Prix. I'm starting to debate that, even though I'd get content hits. Definitely see our YouTube page where we go and put the posts up, the video feed of our show. Josh says, and he handles that on that end. He also handles the production side during the live show for us. So appreciate all the work you do, brother. And we can, and then you can find the show basically anywhere you find podcasts. You can find Gripstrip Podcast. You can find it at philipgmatthew.com. It's about to be re-upped here. Or it did get re-upped, so still philipgmatthew.com. You can find it over there. You can find it on Podbean, which is our streaming, our sharing website, or host website, etc., etc. We'll be back for episode 172 of the Gripstrip Podcast next week, going over IndyCar, all three major NASCAR series, and Formula One. We'll also go through everything we talked about in the roundup this week, plus MotoGP, Moto2 at Mugello, and the big one, the 24 Hours of Le Mans, will be taking place, which will include the Garage 56, Chevy Camaro running, and also the IMSA cars going over there, the GTP cars with the convergence, balance of performance. We'll see if they actually have a chance against the Toyotas and the Ferraris and whoever in the prototype category. And the last hurrah for LMP2 and GTM at Le Mans. So we'll go and preview that, go through the drivers and all. We'll also make our previews and picks for Snoroma, since they'll be running Cup and Xfinity there. So that'll be the only thing that they have there. Josh will give us all his deals on a sim racing on a sim segment and go from there. So thanks for listening to Gripstrip Podcast. For Josh, I'm Phil. Take care. God bless and goodbye.